everybody. So probably about 6 months ago, I received a message from a gentleman who has a YouTube studio or YouTube channel that he wanted to do a response video to I think it's the very first video that I actually made, and I accidentally posted it on a different YouTube channel of mine, but it was about the pro-life argument. I was actually responding to one of my friends who is a self-professed atheist, and he was asking basically what the pro-life argument was. Why did it have any merit? And so I did a video about that. You can check that out. I'll put the link down here if you want to see the original. But this man asked if he could do a response to that video, and I said, of course. He was very kind about it. And he did a response video, and I said that I would watch it and I would get back to him. And I just hadn't in probably about 6 months. So I'm about to do that right now. I have not watched it yet. I'm going to see what his rebuttal is, and then we'll take it from there. So let's check it out.
The so-called pro-life movement has not met the burden of proof. They point at the desert using an appeal to emotion and hope no one looks and just believes what they say. The pro-choice movement is about whether or not a woman has the right to terminate a pregnancy, nothing else. We are talking about a legal issue that concerns a woman's right, period.
I think what most people I've found agree on is that human life is valuable.
I don't believe you. It's irrelevant to the topic of abortion. It's an emotional argument in a video about a non-emotional case for being pro-life. Also, given the other premises, it's limited to fetuses, not women. So it's fetuses are valuable, not born humans.
I'm not actually sure what the last part of his argument was, but value is not simply an emotional appeal. Value, he talks at the beginning of the video about having empirical data, which I don't think is the exclusive way to approach an argument. I mean, it's interesting because he talks about abortion being centered around whether a woman has the right. So I would ask you, sir, why would a woman have a right to anything? Why would a man have a right to anything? Why would a child have a right to anything? Why would a human have a right to anything? Why would an ostrich have a right to anything? We all of a sudden, so at the very beginning of the video, he says that the burden of proof is upon me or upon the pro-life movement to establish whether or not, I guess in this case, a fetus, which is just the Latin for baby, has value or not. And then he says, it's not about that. It's irrelevant. It's about whether a woman has a right. Okay, where is your burden of proof? Why should I care about women's rights? Now, I do care about women's rights because the Bible says that God made man and female in his image, and that we reflect his character. There's value in that. It's worth something. There's something that there's gravity to that. It means more than just being a clump of cells, as people chalk up unborn humans to be. So far, you are saying that the burden of proof is on me, while you have not established why you have credibility in saying that a woman has a right in the first place. Let's continue.
The next question would be, okay, who is human?
This is irrelevant as well.
I don't think the next question is what most people...
Why? I don't understand why that's irrelevant. Because if you're talking about a woman having a right, why does a woman have a right? Ostensibly, a woman has a right because she is human? I don't know. I'm still waiting for that burden of proof to be met by you to establish your case for why a woman has any right whatsoever, even a right to live. Now, again, I don't want people to take from that Danae is saying that women don't have rights. I'm saying that I have a reason for or defense and account for why I believe women have rights. It's because they are image bearers of God. Okay, but you are saying that whether an unborn human has value or not is irrelevant. Why? Okay, your reason is because that women have rights. Where do those rights come from? Legal rights? I mean, surely you wouldn't agree that every law is morally sound. Surely you would agree that even if there weren't laws in place, that those rights would still exist. So where did those rights come from?
It is an objective reality that a human life begins at conception.
Irrelevant. None of your premises are controversial to educated people, yet you're using them in a completely different, separate topic.
Even though maybe people...
Let me establish this. Whether a unborn human is, I mean, I can't even use another word. An unborn, there literally is no other word. You can say fetus, but it just means a baby, a human baby. In this context, it means a human baby. So whether an unborn human is a human or not is absolutely the central argument in this case. Because, and I clarified this at the end of the video, if I remember correctly, because if your primary natural right, the most fundamental natural right, which I think is a divine right given by God, is the right to be alive, that your life isn't unjustly taken from you, then that is step one. You can't even go to step two, which would be whether a woman, and this is not even step two, it's probably like step 8, but you can't go to a next step in the list of rights and ask whether a woman has the right to terminate an unborn human if you don't first establish that that woman has a right to live. Like, that is her right. And that's based on a biblical standard. I still don't know where you're getting that standard from.
Okay, so we established, or at least I established, when life begins.
No. A process starts after people had sex. It turns into a life form, eventually. But initially, it's not life. It just consists of organic matter of a maybe-to-be life form.
Okay, sir. Then my question is, when does that life begin, and why? The burden of proof then is on you.
The reason why there's an argument against the legalization or the moral goodness of abortion is because just like we would defend anyone else's life, ideally, just like we would defend the taking of anyone else's innocent life, we do the same for any human at any stage of development.
No, innocent is an appeal to emotion, and it's irrelevant when it comes to abortion.
Innocent is a legal matter. In our justice system, which comes from Mosaic law, the burden of proof is on the accuser, whoever is holding the person, whoever is accusing the person of wrongdoing. You are innocent until proven guilty, and there must be 2 to 3 witnesses based on Mosaic law, which we see translated into current judicial law. 2 or 3 witnesses to establish that proof, that evidence, which is necessary to prove someone guilty. So that actually has nothing to do with emotion. If you could explain or expound upon why that would have anything to do with emotion, that would be helpful, because I see it as completely disconnected.
We do not discriminate on the basis of age, any type of age. So that is fundamentally the reason. Because a unique human life begins at conception, therefore the defense of that human life should start at that point and carry through till the end of the life.
Humans are not unique. There are 7 billion humans. In fact, people's character isn't even unique because they share mindsets and experiences. But those are characteristics of born people, not something that won the genetic lottery and may or may not end up as a viable organism in up to 9 months. So it's another irrelevant point.
So it is incorrect to say that each human is not unique. Each human is genetically unique. That doesn't mean we don't have commonality. That is a misrepresentation of those terms. You can have commonalities, which is what makes us all human, and still be distinct, which is what makes us individuals. And an individual is one that cannot be divided, right? So I call an unborn human an individual. We call them an individual because you cannot divide and they still exist as they are. Like divide into separate parts and exist as they are. So again, to say that we are not unique is fundamentally incorrect.
Right, now we get into possibly some of the has to do with autonomy.
Okay, then why did you waste 10 minutes not talking about it?
Bodily, what they'll refer to as bodily autonomy, a woman's choice with what she does with her body. Okay.
The reason why I, in my opinion, did not waste, but I invested those 10 minutes beforehand was to establish the case for why pro-life people or abortion abolitionists, whatever camp you identify with, the reason why the entire argument centers around the child is because it focuses on the fundamental right to life. And if the argument is that the unborn human is not a human, is not a living human, then we have no case. But if the argument is that the unborn human is indeed an unborn, innocent human being, then the secondary arguments about a woman's right to choose can't supersede someone's fundamental right to life, because the right to life is foundational. If you cut that out, you don't have any other rights because you're dead.
What was explicitly stated was the argument, if my wife or mom or potential daughter, whoever, is raped, why should they have to carry out that pregnancy? So I would respond with two things. The first thing I would respond with is I don't know why we are using 1% of abortion cases to legitimize abortion.
Because those 1% represent thousands of women. They would lose that option. But if bodily autonomy is a valid reason here, then why isn't it valid in other cases? Actually, how many women must be raped for abortion to be legitimized for all women? Are the 1% not enough?
Yeah, because that actually is an emotional appeal to say this person is raped. I'm putting these words here, but I'm angry about it. Ostensibly, people are angry about it. Hopefully, people are angry about rape. But you're saying we're going to use the rape case, the most emotionally charged case that there is for people advocating for abortion. You're going to use that and apply it to all other cases. Now, if you want to have the argument about bodily autonomy, then have that argument. You are actually engaging in switching topics here by going from rape and applying it to all cases and then saying, but bodily autonomy also. Okay. If you want to stick to a topic, want to stick to your main argument, then choose one.
When women consent to sex, that doesn't mean they automatically consent to being pregnant.
Yes, you do. That is a complete fallacy. If you consent to sex, you are consenting to pregnancy because one causes the other. And I think that a lot of people aren't going to like the fact that I say that. Even a lot of other Christians won't like the fact that I say that. But that's exactly how your bodies were designed. Humans are created through sex. Sex creates humans. And sex doesn't always create humans, but engaging in the act, you are absolutely submitting to that. If you don't even want to acknowledge God in that, acknowledge the biological reality that to say jumping up into the air isn't submitting to the idea or to the law of gravity to pull me back down. I don't want to be pulled back down. Well, it's kind of too bad, right? Like, you will be pulled back down. So although you will not be producing a child in all sexual encounters, to engage in that act can lead to a child. So you better be aware of that natural law that's in effect when you're engaging in the sexual act.
In both cases, bodily autonomy is the same valid reason to choose an abortion. It's not a life yet. Value is subjective. It's not equal considering the fetus must be preserved.
Okay, then as a woman's right, or the value in a woman's right to choose an abortion subjective? Like, why is that the highest right? It's interesting because you keep asserting that things like value are emotional or things like value is subjective, yet you haven't actually stated your case for why you value a woman's right. You have a value system that's obviously in place here. You have a very clear value system. You value that a woman can choose to have an abortion or terminate her pregnancy. Yet at the same time, you haven't legitimized that value system. Where does that value system come from? You are automatically prioritizing one or the other. I am stating from a Christian and a natural law perspective that the fundamental right for all humans is the right to life. And if you take that away, you don't have any other rights. And you are saying, no, it's irrelevant. It's all about a woman's right to choose. Why? Says who? By what standard? Like, what is your, give me your burden of proof. I think I'm going to be saying the whole thing until the very end. So let's just see if there's any other little snippets that I want to respond to.
Related to whether or not the taking of a human life, even an incipient human life, is morally acceptable.
Wait, gotta stop you there. Skipping bodily autonomy, not really addressing the emotional trauma that rape victims suffer through, sometimes for life?
Trauma. Is that an emotional appeal? I care about trauma. I care about what happens to other humans. I care about violations to other humans. Why do you? I think I know why you do, but you haven't actually given a case for that. You're giving an emotional appeal now. After you accused me of emotionally appealing to innocence or emotionally appealing to whether an unborn baby is a human or not, or an unborn human is human or not, you now use trauma as part of your argumentation. And yet you're the same things that I'm being accused of, you're actually doing. You have not given a foundation or a reason or a defense for your value system.
Not addressing unwanted pregnancies, especially for underage victims who create a bond when giving birth, but then they're forced to hand over their baby to foster care or adoption.
Why do you think that bond is there? Because the child and the mother are supposed to be with each other. Now you are switching topics to, actually you're using another emotional appeal to mothers having their babies ripped away. Yeah, I know, it's terrible. That's the same thing I'm advocating against. I don't want that trauma for women. And actually, it doesn't have anything directly, your argument doesn't have anything directly to do with abortion. You're switching topics now to legitimize your argument in some way.
Certainly invoking morality in a conversation about abortion and non-emotional case for pro-life.
Everything is moral, sir. Everything is. The entire reason you're doing this video is because you think that I am wrong. You think that I'm wrong. Why? You think that I'm morally incorrect because I'm not acknowledging bodily autonomy or a woman's right to choose. That is a moral argument that you're making.
Talk about missing the important topics. Still no mention if women should have a right to their own body. It sounds more like rape is no good reason for others to choose an abortion.
Yeah, so I will say, just to make it clear, that we are given our bodies by God, by our Creator, to steward them, to take care of them, etc. When someone violates another person's body, in the case of rape, I believe, per the Bible standards, that they have relinquished their right to life. The rapist has relinquished their right to life and should receive the death penalty. I do. So actually, I have a very clear and firm understanding of a woman's right to her own body. I believe that the unborn human inside of that body has a right to their body. Now, when you say that the unborn human has invaded the woman's body, that unborn human, regardless of who the father is that woman's child. That child's mother is supposed to be the safest place for that child that they will ever be. And when that right, their right to life, is violated, and it's violated by their mother, that is one of the most heinous evils to be perpetrated on an innocent victim that you can imagine.
There's the two major opposing arguments. From the pro-life standpoint, life begins at conception, because human life begins at conception, because we're talking about humanity, and human life at every point of development is worthy of defense.
This does not describe a pro-life position, because it's always centered around a collection of human cells that are not a life form yet.
That is very much the pro-life position. I don't know what your previous understanding of the pro-life position was, but the pro-life position is definitely a defense of unborn humans at every stage of development.
Only life when they are viable.
Says who? And viable is changing all the time. It used to be maybe 28 weeks, then it went 27, then 26, and 25, 24, 23. It keeps going back. So why is viability that standard? So I'll ask you again, why is viability the standard? Why is a woman's bodily autonomy the standard? Why is that your priority? Why is that in terms of your ranking of your value system? How did you put, a woman's bodily autonomy where it is? How did you put viability as the metric for whether someone has value or not? Or whether, at the same time, even when a fetus is viable outside of the womb, would you then argue that the woman does not have the right to terminate what's in her? I mean, it's still in her body. I'm assuming that would still be your argument, that they have a right to do anything with their body at all. So I have kind of two questions. Why did you decide to use viability as the metric? And does that violate your previous argument about bodily autonomy?
Before, it's a pro-forced birth movement who also partially worships a genocidal tyrant and are pro-guns. For it to be a pro-life movement,
I don't know how guns got brought into this. I don't think I've ever talked about guns on any of my videos, but
they all need to be vegans, be against guns, and not worship a faith-based deity that condones violence in any form.
So when it comes to veganism, I love meat. I like that God revealed to Peter that we could get up and eat all animals. I don't understand the vegan argument. And my God is a God that has wrath against evil in this world. And he is also a God that is merciful and slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. So my prayer would just be that you could meet him. I mean, sir, I am no different than you in the sense that I assert myself as being inherently more moral than you, inherently smarter than you, anything, truly nothing. And I think that maybe you haven't seen God for who he really is. You haven't seen that in your defense of bodily autonomy, in a way, you're actually betraying the fact that you're an image bearer of God and that all arguments that you're making are moral in nature because you're made in God's image. You are reflecting in a different way, but you're reflecting in some way that you care about what's moral. You care about someone being raped. You care about someone's rights being violated. Now, I think you're wrong in how those are playing out, but I think that you just don't see the fact that you actually were made by this God who has caused you to care about people in this way, care about making a video, right, in response to me, because you think that I'm wrong. You care about that, and that's because you were made by God.
All right. That's what I'm going to put out there. Welcome to Responses, and let's talk about it.
The big problem pro-lifers can't understand is abortion is about ending a pregnancy, and that's it. The consequences of that termination of a pregnancy are separate and irrelevant because the choice and welfare of the women who decide to terminate a pregnancy must supersede everything else. A fetus has no rights.
Why must it supersede everything else? That's a value system.
No legal rights, no right to using someone else's body. They can't use someone else's body to survive. A person already born does not have those kind of rights. Now why would we grant someone extra rights if they are supposed to be equal rights?
Actually, everyone had that right. So no one had extra rights because everyone was in their mother's womb at one point. So no one had extra rights. But there are particular privileges that a human has when they're in their mother's womb that they don't have outside. And that would hopefully be safety. But we haven't seen that play out.
They are trying to make laws based on their feelings, which have nothing empirical to back them up. Drive by out.
Well, thank you for your response. I would love to talk to you live. I would love to have a conversation with you about this and have someone moderate it, even an unbiased person moderate it and let us have time to talk. But I really appreciate you engaging. I hope everyone else who watched this can be edified from it and can enjoy it. All right. That's it for now. See you next time.